This video is made under fair use and is for educational purposes. You may download and share any of my videos as I am being heavily shadow banned, my view numbers have been reduced dramatically, and my subscribers are being removed. So I must be over the target. This is the second time I've made this video. I apologize for the first make of this video. It caused confusion and I didn't take into account that many people only have cell phones and couldn't see the documents that I was referring to. I thank all parties who have given factual historical references to the events that unfolded during the American Civil War. I thank Diane for the books about the true history of Lincoln. The following is a compilation of information from these sources, including my own input concerning this history. Also, I referenced the Holy Bible for good reason. This enemy knows the Bible very well, and everything that they do relates to the Bible in some way. It doesn't matter what any of us think about religion or the Holy Bible, it matters what our enemy believes. If we do not understand our enemy, we cannot defeat them. This video is meant as a brief outline of the true history and motives for the American Civil War. What we've been taught in public schools is mostly lies to elevate members of the Khazarian Jewish Mafia and the Luciferian Masons to the status of gods as their cult religion promises them that they can become. See the Lincoln assassination, the Kennedy assassination, Reagan attempted assassination, Trump attempted assassination, and so on. They want to be martyrs. These were all staged. They do not kill their own. They have godlike fame and control of people everywhere. That is what gods do. Lowercase g. Prior to the American Civil War, the country operated under God's common law, i.e. the law of the land. The constitutions were put in place to enforce the law of the land. Each state was considered its own nation state. The only political status in this country was a state citizen. If you were the citizen of one of the states, you were considered amalgamated citizen under the United States of America. So, if you were a citizen of a state, you were a citizen of the nation. That's where the term national comes in. You were a state national citizen. Small s in state, by the way. They were not corporations yet. The American Civil War was started by the Rothschild Jews who funded both sides of the conflict to put the real unincorporated American government deeply into their debt and push it aside. What the Khazarian Jews wanted in return for their investment in this staged war was that the people in this country be used as collateral on the debt. This is how the Khazarian Jewish Mafia has taken over nearly every country in the world to this point, and they have staged the final war, World War III, as was predicted and planned in part by 33rd degree Luciferian Mason Albert Pike in his 1871 book, Morals and Dogma. This final war is to bring in the New World Order and to enslave all the world's people under one satanic Luciferian government and Jewish Noahide laws. First, understanding the basic history of the Jewish Mafia is crucial. The satanic Khazarian Jews have a long history of murder, theft, name stealing, and name changing. Their original country, Khazaria, is now Ukraine. These Khazarian Jews sacrifice children to Satan and their demon gods in the cruelest fashion. These are Ninth Circle Satanists, which consider themselves to be the closest to Satan in hell. See Dante's Inferno. These Jews are the ones that we were warned about in the Holy Bible. I paraphrase. Beware of those who say that they are Jews but are not, for they are the synagogue of Satan. See Revelations 2:9 through 11 and 3:9. Some 1,500 years ago, neighboring countries forced these Satanists to adopt another religion, to quit murdering merchants, stealing their names and goods to steal and murder even more, and to quit sacrificing children to their demon gods. The Khazars decided to become Jews. These Khazarian Jews not only continued to sacrifice children, but they also tortured them in manners that I will not describe here to get the adrenochrome levels up in their blood. Then they drink that child's blood and eat that child's flesh. They are true vampires. They blaspheme God at every turn, and innocent children are the most precious to God. This is partly what is required to be in the ninth pit of hell next to Satan. And you'll notice in this picture that I have up here that they are in their black and white Masonic colors, using their symbolism, hidden hand, which the Masons also use, the finger over the mouth, which means don't tell anyone their secrets. And you'll see that in several places in this picture where they cover their mouth. And this is all on purpose. They're telling you who they are. And here's another sect of the Jews, but they're all quite the same. These are the lying Jews that founded Israel, which is not a country in the Bible, but a man. You can see them in their black and white Masonic colors. And these have the black cube of Saturn Satan worn on their foreheads. See Revelation 13:16 through 17, the mark of the beast. God also does not choose his people choose him. Again, the satanic upside down hypocrisy. This is pedophilia in the Jewish Talmud. Sanhedrin 55b. A Jew may marry a 3-year-old girl. Sanhedrin 54b. A Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old. Kethuboth 9b. When a grown man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing. For when a girl is less than 3 years old, it is as if one puts a finger to the eye. These satanic Jews freely call non-Jews goyim, which means cattle. They consider us cattle and slaves because we do not understand our own enslavement and believe what we are taught in their schools. By way of deception, we are enslaved under a false government ran by these Jews and Masons. And there's our presidents at the wall in Israel, bowing down to the Jews. Satanists are hypocrites on purpose. They say exactly the opposite of what they really mean, and then they laugh at the foolish for believing them time after time. They mock the Bible at every turn, and what does the Bible say about hypocrites? Job 34:30. That the hypocrite reign not, lest the people be enslaved. And now we have been enslaved, but we can become free under God's common law, i.e. the law of the land once again. Look at those dead eyes. Lincoln was the president selected to oversee the American Civil War. He is from the Illuminati bloodlines and is said to be a descendant of Vlad the Impaler, Count Dracula. He was to accomplish the passing of the 13th Amendment and to keep the bloody war going for a variety of reasons. He accomplished murdering some 670,000 people because he loved the people so much. His grandpa Vlad would be proud. Here are some passages from the book Lincoln Unmasked by Thomas D. Lorenzo. As soon as he was elected, but before his inauguration, Lincoln instructed Seward to begin the procedure to enact a constitutional amendment that would say, quote, "The Constitution should never be altered so as to authorize Congress to abolish or interfere with slavery in the states," end quote. So just like a Satanist, they say one thing and do another. Lincoln illegally suspended the writ of habeas corpus and had his military imprison tens of thousands of Northern political critics and opponents without due process. He censored all telegraph communication, shut down the over 300 opposition newspapers, imprisoned dozens of duly elected officials in Maryland, and participated in the rigging of northern elections, waged war without the consent of Congress, illegally created a new state, West Virginia, and deported the most outspoken member of the Democratic opposition, Congressman Clement Vallandigham of Ohio. Lincoln famously said of Ulysses S. Grant, a Mason, there's the hidden hand, that he admired him and would stick with him as the commander of the Army of the Potomac because he fights. Quote, he fights, end quote. In other words, Grant was the general who would never stop killing his fellow citizens, no matter how many of his own men were sacrificed in the process. Lincoln also refused all proposals for peace concerning the American Civil War. Back to the 14th Amendment. The hypocrisy of the 14th Amendment is that it provides, quote, equal protection under the law, end quote. That means their law, maritime law, federal citizenship, not the law of the land, and gave, quote, privileges, end quote, instead of God-given rights. They gave civil rights instead of constitutional rights, and gives so-called refugees the same privileges as Americans that are duped out of their God-given rights and are placed under a federal citizenship by deception and by semantics in the wording of the document. Now, we see these refugees, which are mostly illegals, flooding this nation and getting the benefits of the 14th Amendment without being an actual citizen of the federal corporate government. One would think that what is happening now was planned far ahead of time for just this moment. The first sentence of the 14th Amendment is where much of the deception is, but what we need to understand is that the 13th Amendment was set up prior to the 14th Amendment in order to carry out this farce and enslave people under voluntary servitude. The 13th Amendment states that, quote, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude is permitted in any state unless a person has been duly convicted of a crime, shall exist in the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction, end quote. Notice that the term voluntary servitude is exempted from the 13th Amendment. Voluntary servitude is thus legal by exemption. The use of the word there is also important as it is passed for the states, i.e., their jurisdiction. There is plural, not singular. In the book Lincoln Unmasked by Thomas DiLorenzo, the phrase the United States is always plural in the Constitution and all other founding documents, signifying not one consolidated government, but a confederacy of states. After the war, Southern legislatures were allowed back into Congress to vote on the 13th Amendment on January 31st, 1865. These same Southern legislators were kicked out of the Union unless they ratified the 14th Amendment into law. Prior to this, the Southern states wanted to remove themselves from the Union. Now they are kicked out and extorted in order to pass the 14th Amendment. The first line in the 14th Amendment states, quote, all persons born or naturalized within the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. According to Roger Sales on his site globalvoiceradio.net, quote, the first landmine is the word and, linking the first two portions of the sentence together. The first qualification is, quote, all persons born or naturalized, And the second is, quote, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The jurisdiction thereof refers to the federal government. The is singular in this sentence, which is distinct from the 13th Amendment that refers to their jurisdiction, which is the states. Now you have the plural and the singular. The two sentences are not mutually exclusive. You cannot have someone born or naturalized in the United States without them being a citizen of the federal government, according to the 14th Amendment's use of the word and. How is the 14th Amendment the great equalizer? Is it because it can make nearly everyone a slave regardless of race? How can this sentence entrap us? How did we enter voluntary servitude under the 14th Amendment? Good questions. This government will ask you, are you a U.S. citizen or a citizen of the United States? And are you a resident of whatever state you live in? If you answered yes to these questions, you just agreed to your own voluntary servitude as a federal citizen under the 14th Amendment. That is what a U.S. citizen or citizen of the United States is. This is contract law under a corporate so-called government. You have the option to be a state national citizen, which places you under the law of the land, i.e. God's common law. You can exit this voluntary servitude that this fraudulent government has placed you under. We will discuss this soon. This government became a corporation in 1871. So it is the corporation of the United States of America, and so on. Now all the dominoes are in place to topple landlocked governments and to enslave all citizens under corporate maritime law and federal U.S. citizenships by the end of World War III. The 14th Amendment slave contract has worked, and most people have no idea that they were born into slavery and are taught in their schools that they are free. Also, 1871 is when Luciferian Mason Albert Pike published his book Morals and Dogma, which outlines the 3 world wars and how they will be accomplished. This is no coincidence. Everything is scripted by the satanic Luciferians far ahead of time. This is a satanic movie, and the people that represent this criminal government are all actors on a stage, including every selected elected official, right up to the corporate CEO president. That includes all presidents from Lincoln on, including JFK, Trump, Biden, and so on. We can peacefully stop them by opting out of the voluntary servitude of the 14th Amendment and become state national citizens under God's common law, the law of the land, once again. This country is operating under 2 citizenships and 2 governments. This fact is backed up by their own court rulings. It is important to note that all laws passed after 1860 are not legal under common law. The 70,000 plus codes, rules, bills, mandates, executive orders, and so on are to further enslave us under mounds of red tape and to rob us at every turn, including taxation without representation. God's common law is easy for anyone to understand. If there is a crime, there is a victim. A victim of a crime is compensated for the injuries incurred on them by the criminal. A jury of your peers is selected to hear your case. A judge may sit as a mediator and answer any questions that the jury may have. A jury has the right to throw a law out if they agree that it is not for the benefit of the people. No juries are fully informed of this ability in this corporate government. The sentence is carried out quickly and there are no appeals. The military, under the law of the land, can protect our borders from invasion and protect our nation from those attempting to overthrow our landlocked government from within, as this corporate government is doing. Our real military has no authority to wage war against other nations. Only the military mercenaries of the corporate government do this, which means that they are not truly our military. The penalty for treason against the United States under the law of the land is death by being shot or hung. It does not take a jury to do this. Your local sheriff can make it happen, but many of them are corporate shills and masons, which means that they are guilty of the same crimes. We are witnessing treason against we the people on a mass scale once again. Satan's short season must end. How to exit the matrix of deception? I looked and found an easy way to change my citizen status, and it will work for a passport application too. This won't affect anyone's Social Security either. I was contacted by someone who used methods put together by Roger Sales on his website globalvoiceradio.net. Please look at this site and go to New Student Start Here. Roger backs up everything with case law and lots of it. That's important if they challenged you about your change in status or any other legal reason if they oppose you. If this is done right, I see no issue. All that is required is one document to be notarized called Affidavit of Citizenship Evidence, and another one to the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C., requesting that your change of citizenship be placed in your file, which is signed by you. Both of these documents are to be sent to the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C. The Affidavit of Citizenship states, quote, I, your name goes here, being duly sworn under penalty of perjury of the laws of the United States of America, hereby declare my intention to be a national with God-given constitutionally protected rights and not a U.S. citizen in a condition of voluntary servitude with civil rights under the scope and purview of the 14th Amendment, end quote. The next paragraph states, quote, as a national, I am a non-resident to the residency and alien to the condition of voluntary servitude of the 14th Amendment. National status is deceptively identified at 26 CFR 1.1-1A as a non-resident alien. Under that is a line for your printed name, under that a signature line, and under that is your Social Security number, and lastly, a place for the notary to sign, date, and stamp your document. It's very simple. It's less than one page. The second document is to the U.S. Department of State, 2201 C Street, Washington, D.C., 20520, and that's where both documents go, by the way. Attention Records Department. Dear Sirs, I am contacting your office at this time to request a change in my citizenship status from U.S. citizen to small s state national citizen, because it's not a corporation. Please adjust your records accordingly and place this request and change of citizenship status firmly and permanently in my file at this time. Thank you for your service and assistance. Then below that, you place your written name, signature, and the last 4 digits of your Social Security number on this document. This second document does not need to be notarized. Make a copy of these 2 documents and keep the originals in a file. Send the required documents to the United States Department of State, certified with return receipt. Once you get the return receipt, you can follow Roger's directions to get a passport. A driver's license is not necessary for identification and links you to the corporate government under the 14th Amendment Slavery Clause. Under the law of the land, you are not required to have a driver's license. Only commercial drivers are required to have one. So that's just 2 simple forms that you need to send in at this point. Once you get your return receipt, you can take a copy of that and the documents that you sent in, along with this letter, for your change of citizenship status, and this is to the IRS. And the heading says, this is not a filing, this is a legal document. And you don't want them to think it's a filing, because then they'll want to charge you hundreds of dollars for it. So it's a legal document. Followed by the address of the IRS office nearest to you. Under this address, it says, quote, the notice to the principal is notice to agent. The notice to the agent is notice to the principal, end quote. Next paragraph says, quote, please find citizenship evidence enclosed to change my national status. The third and last paragraph says, quote, please place this legal affidavit firmly and permanently in my administrative file. The affidavit filed with the U.S. Secretary of State Office, Washington, D.C. This should opt you out of being taxed by this criminal organization. These are examples of required documents. I am not giving legal advice, and these are examples only. I recommend that you go to Roger Sales' website so you can educate yourself further. And then on his website, you'll see here is filing citizenship evidence with passport application, original or renewal. And he gives you steps to go through to file your passport properly under your new citizenship. And the next one is if you already have a passport. I won't read these because they're quite extensive, but this will give you an idea and where you can go to find these documents. And there's the contact information there for Roger if you'd like to talk to him. And this document is also on his website, and it's 2 pages of case law showing that there are indeed 2 different citizenships in this government. U.S. citizens are property. U.S. nationals, state citizens are not. Which do you want to be? So look that up and read up on the law that will protect you. And then I have some other videos that I recommend that you may watch to help fill in the gaps. This one is called Understanding Your Enslavement, No Authority Greater Than God. Another video that I made is called No Legal, Written, Notarized Oaths of Office in This Satanic Government. And another one is called We Are Slaves and Monsters Under Maritime Law, Notice to Attorneys. And they are all under Kim Paddock on BitChute or Rumble. So take a look at those. And then I'll jump over to I want to pull up Roger's website here. So let's search for it here. Sorry about the Oh, give me a moment. Anyway, instead of pulling up his website, I'll leave that up to you, and I'll leave a link below so that you can get it done. And here's how I'm going to close. If you have taken other measures to remove yourself from this criminal government, this process may be an additional step to take to avoid legal problems in court if and when they may arise concerning your citizenship status. This method is backed by a lot of case law that can be used against the criminal government if such a need arises. I will make another video that explains how this criminal government kidnaps children with no due process of law. Removing yourself from the voluntary servitude of the 14th Amendment could help you with this. Your children are not under any contract with this criminal government, but you are unless you change your status. Telling health and welfare CPS and others that you are not a U.S. citizen under the 14th Amendment could mean the difference between your children being taken or not. A contract can only be between those who are old enough to understand the contract and agree to it. Spread the news that we are slaves no more. God bless. Thank you for watching my videos. Please like and subscribe and go to the link below and look at Roger's website.